Long Take Review, where 4 college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sobchak-Bankard, and I'm here with 2 suspicious agents. First, it's been a while since we had a traitor to dinner. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
There's a plan and a counter plan. One is using you to get to me, the other me to get to you. Hi, Jen. It's good to be here. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. I'm already going to spoil this from behind the scenes. Every once in a while, I see a movie and I say it's really good, and everybody else is like, we're too busy, Greg. No, thank you. And this time, everybody was like, let's do it. Let's try it. Let's check it out. And so I'm very excited to be here.
I think, the genre to me was like too hard to resist, but we'll get into it. And he would like you to try the chana masala he made. It's Antonio Elefano. How are you doing, Antonio?
That was The Rock. Now I watch the ripples. I'm doing great. I'm so excited.
There's so many great lines in this. I just realized
there are.
Yeah. So, dear listeners, those were all references to the film we are here to review today. Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag, which is out in theaters now. The slick spy thriller mystery tells the story of 2 secret agents whose marriage is put to the test when it seems the agency they work for has been compromised. This stars Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender. They play the deadly couple at the center of the film. And then Naomi Harris, who actually is Best Supporting Actress nominee for Moonlight. I almost forgot about that. But most people know her as Moneypenny in the Daniel Craig Bond films. Tom Burke, who was most recently in Furiosa. Regé-Jean Page, I think is how you say his name. I've heard many podcasters struggle with his name. So now I don't remember what it actually is. But he's most famous probably for Netflix's Bridgerton. He's in season 1. Marissa Abella, who is big on Industry, which I haven't seen, unfortunately, but she's great in this movie. And Pierce Brosnan rounds out the cast. So it's a big starry cast for sure. If you are listening to us for the first time, we will have a spoiler-free section designed for those who have not yet seen Black Bag, and then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. So we will not be stealthy like spies. We will be very clear and open about when we start spoilers. But Greg, if listeners want to investigate us after listening to this episode, what can they do?
It's so confusing when you throw it to me for this. Well, if listeners find the movie ticket stubs in our trash cans interesting, then you don't want to miss any new episodes when they drop. You should follow us. You should follow the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. We host the feed on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, anywhere you're listening to podcasts, you can find us there. You can also follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review, and most importantly on Letterboxd at LTR Pod. We miss you, PT. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Greg, for filling in for PT's usual bits. All right, so we are just about ready to get into our discussion of Black Bag, but first, at Greg's behest, we have a quick movie news update.
Just in off the wire, it's your Hollywood news.
We haven't done one of these for a while. That sound drop never gets
Special
old.
guest Hasib didn't get to hear movie news. I think that's a terrible outcome from our last episode.
That's true. We messed up on that one. Sorry, Hasib. Next time. All right. So Greg's big news that he pointed out, which actually I hadn't even seen when he texted the group about this. Oh, hey, we should probably do movie news. I was like, wait, what's going on? But the Marvel dropped a big, I don't even know if I would call it a teaser. I get it technically is, but it's an ad, basically. You know what I mean? It's not, there's no footage of the movie, but it's for Avengers Doomsday. Greg, why don't you fill us in on the particulars of this?
Sure. So I would classify this as we're about to start filming and we're worried paparazzi will beat us to the punch on this. So I think they wanted to reveal the cast of the movie, presumably because there are tons of paparazzi hanging out around Atlanta trying to see who shows up in what hotel. Or how did Andrew Garfield ruin it? By who orders Uber Eats to their Airbnb, I think, is how somebody discovered Andrew Garfield was in Far From Home. So they put out a teaser trailer that is just Avengers Doomsday is about to be in production. And it's ridiculously simple. It is a slow panning shot across the back of standard on-set actors' chairs, and it simply lists the names of the actors who will be appearing in said Avengers film. I think, I was going to lump myself with Jen. I often feel like the last person on I Still Care About the MCU Island, and I would usually have Jen with me, except she hasn't yet seen Captain America, which came out 6 weeks ago. But I will say that I think the goal here from a Marvel standpoint is to get people who checked out to check back in and to try to draw in all the kind of fair weather fans who have maybe given up due to some of the frustrations of the missteps and the poor quality entries that have occurred. So the big takeaway is that the list of actors is insane. Jen, do you want to take the next hour to list them all individually?
Oh my gosh. Well, I believe there are 27 total. And the Variety article that I saw actually very helpfully grouped them into 3 groups. The kind of like old school classic Marvel stars. So Chris Hemsworth is Thor, Anthony Mackie is Sam Wilson, Danny Ramirez as Joaquin Torres. So they're obviously from the most recent movie. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, Tom Hiddleston as Loki. I was like, wow, he really doesn't want to give up this role. Letitia Wright as Shuri, Winston Duke as M'Baku, which that was the one when I saw that, I pumped my fist. I was like, yes, M'Baku. How are they going to fit him in this movie? I don't care. And then Robert Downey Jr. So those are the kind of like, I mean, you could say that Danny Ramirez is not in this group, but I think the kind of original Avengers, classic Avengers, and adjacent characters. And then there's a second group of actors who have played X-Men: Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen. That I was like, whoa, I'm impressed they got him. Kelsey Grammer, Alan Cumming, James Marsden, Channing Tatum, who has only played Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine, but sure. And then Rebecca, formerly known as Rebecca Romaine Stamos, I believe, right? I didn't recognize her name at first because there was no Stamos. But she originally played Mystique in the Bryan Singer X movies before Jennifer Lawrence did. And then we have kind of the new school Marvel characters, right? So we have all of the actors who are supposed to be in the Fantastic Four movie that's coming out: Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Ebon Moss-Backrack. And then we have the kind of like, then we have the cast of the Thunderbolts: Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, right? I already mentioned Sebastian Stan, Hannah John Kamen as Ghost. And then here's the one I didn't recognize: Louis Pullman, who's apparently playing the mysterious Bob, but is actually Sentry. And I think no one knows who he is because he hasn't been in anything yet. That one confused me.
Did you just spoil Thunderbolts for us? I think you might have.
I mean,
no, you're good. Well, remember that Louis Pullman, of course, famous for playing Bob in Top Gun Maverick. So he continues
to be
Bob
Bob
roles in there. And just to close that out, Simu Liu as Shang-Chi and Tenoch Huerta Mejia as Namor. That is so many people, and immediately your thought goes to it's too many people, right? But I don't know how they'll do this. My big surprise is that they didn't recast the X-Men. They're going back to the X-Men from when I assume we were all teenagers and are pulling these poor people back in to do it. To your point, they must have offered Ian McKellen a ton of money, right? He doesn't want to do this, I would imagine. So
he's just been hanging out in the West End. He doesn't need to come back. He's perfectly happy.
He owns a pub and runs it, right? Like he hangs out. So, Jen, pick one name that's your biggest point of excitement.
I mean, other than Ian McKellen, I mean, really, It's the X-Men factor for me in general.
Okay.
Like, I don't. It's the this is enough actors who have played X-Men that maybe this is for real X-Men. Though Multiverse of Madness, pretended it was doing this, but then made it not real and killed all those characters. Right? Sorry, spoilers for that movie. No one cares about that movie anymore. But so that's the biggest potential I think that this has. But if I could be really cynical for a second, And apologies in advance. This really feels like they're trying to shortcut their way to an endgame situation where they're like, and that took 22 movies to build up to, and they're trying to do it in like 2, right? Because if you think about the movies that most of the people are represented, other than the X-Men, right? There's Wakanda Forever, the most recent Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, which isn't out yet. Internet actually very unhappy that this spoils that nobody dies in Thunderbolts.
Oh yeah.
So, so it does feel like very desperate in a way that makes me a little skeptical, but I don't know. But then the 12-year-old in me is like, yes. I don't care.
I absolutely sniff that whiff of desperation here as well, and trying to convince people to come back. I don't think you can ignore that, even as somebody who's stayed loyal to it. Now, Thunderbolts, the next release, closes out a phase. I believe it's phase 5 that started with Wakanda Forever. I think I have that right. So,
bless you, Greg.
I think that's
keeping
right.
Track of that.
And so Fantastic Four starts, I believe, phase 6. So you could say that, yes, they've taken a couple phases to set up to this, but I think your comment alludes to the fact that nobody believes they've had a clear plan over the last 3 or 4 years. So I think this just feels like they're trying to retrofit a plan onto it. You know, I actually think it's time to recast the X-Men. I do love the X-Men. I do love a lot, but like, I assume this will involve their dimension coming into the MCU dimension and not actually preclude a new set of X-Men from arising within this. Who are you surprised is missing, Jen? There are a lot of people missing.
I mean, yeah, but I'm not surprised. Our fave, Elizabeth Olsen, she's like, I'm done with this. Sorry.
Yeah, I think she's justifiably frustrated with how her character was treated. There's no Spider-Man. There's no Spider-Man, period. And you name-checked his sequel. There's no Doctor Strange either. So there are some kind of notable misses here. Are they saving them for the next Avengers? Have people quit and left the franchise potentially? I think there's a lot up in the air and a lot of questions, but it's exciting. It's fun to see the internet excited about Marvel again instead of just kind of shrugging. So,
Antonio, you are much more removed from this than the rest of us. But do you have any additional thoughts, or like, what did you think about this news?
It does smell like desperate to me, but I will say it was effective in piquing my curiosity in a way that it hasn't been piqued in a long time. I will watch this movie. I will watch this movie even if the reviews are terrible. I will watch it just to see all of this happen, because that is an extraordinary collection of people. The miss for me for the X-Men, I think I'm most excited to see the X-Men revive, but I agree with Greg that I don't think that there were many people who necessarily wanted to see this version of the X-Men back on screen again, but I'll watch it. I'll happily watch it. My favorite X-Men was always Storm. She also was not treated well in those initial movies, so it's not surprising that Halle Berry doesn't want to come back to revive that. But yeah.
There's so many actresses who could be a great Storm right now. You know what I mean too? Like, it's just a missed opportunity to not yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I need Storm's like pickpocket backstory. We need to finally get that. Have you?
I mean, I would have loved to see any actress, but Halle Berry, sure, do the Queen of Wakanda with Chadwick Boseman if that had been possible before his passing. That would have been great. Hey, the Marvels aren't here, Miss or Captain. So they are that. I think Captain Marvel, I would question whether Brie Larson wants to continue in that role. She's had some bad experiences. Jen, have you seen Daredevil this week yet?
I just did not that long ago.
So we know that Ms. Marvel is on the West Coast, right?
Yes.
So she's hanging out in the West Coast. So who's she with? neither
She's
Hawkeye.
currently filming the stinger for this movie. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Neither Hawkeye and a lot of those characters they've built up as Young Avengers are kind of missing. So I would assume there's a Young Avengers something happening on the West Coast while this movie goes on. Although I would have put Yelena in that group instead of the adult group. So who knows?
Yeah. Part of me is just like, how are they going to possibly get the plots of these movies to intertwine in some way? Like that's the like craning my neck to watch the car wreck curiosity of like, how are they going to do that? I don't know. I think David Chen online today made the joke that if you do the math, the average screen time for all these actors will be 5 minutes. So it'd be interesting to see who's
after
actually
the triumph of Netflix original The Electric State. Don't you trust the Russo brothers to do a good job on character development and, I don't know, wig selection?
Oh wow! Don't spoil a potential future episode on that movie, which we were just talking about doing potentially. So Russo brothers have they made anything good since being a part of Marvel? Because I don't know if any of you saw Cherry with Tom Holland.
I did, and it was not good.
It is bad. It's a bad.
And
I don't often use that word with movies, but it was bad.
The Gray Man, not good. I think they're calling as being producers, right? They produced Everything Everywhere. So they've had some good applications of their money, but the things they've chosen to direct are not great. So
to be continued. Maybe we have to do an episode on Electric State now. Just to try to
I
make
was
sense
promised
of it.
5 minutes. I have now stolen 10. Thank you very much for indulging me. Onward
no problem, Greg.
to the Hey, do you like things for adults that aren't superheroes? Because that's what the rest of the episode is about.
Like everyone who came here for Black Bag is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay. So let's start with our short takes. We'll start with Antonio since he didn't get a lot of airtime because reasonably he doesn't have a lot to say about Marvel. What Antonio, what was your general reaction to Black Bag?
I thought it was a really great time, and it was made even greater for some unexpected reasons. There are things that I sort of expected to be great. There's a measure of sort of coolness and intrigue that you naturally expect from the intersection of spy movie, Steven Soderbergh, Michael Fassbender, and Cate Blanchett. But while this movie is like half James Bond, its other more surprising half is Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. The messy psychology and character drama really elevate this to a special and wildly entertaining night at the movies. So I loved it. Greg, what did you think?
As I spoiled, I absolutely love this movie. I will say I enjoyed the last Fassbender movie. That was The Killer. I found it was solid, but it was kind of I'm not so sure about this. And I also went to the Soderbergh movie Presence in January, which I was like, I don't know about this. So they nicely kind of rope-a-doped me into like lowering my expectations a little bit. But this totally blew me away. It was exactly as Antonio said. It is surprising that it's not exactly what it's been marketed as or what it appears to be in ways that really knocked me out. And I found, and this goes back to Jen's introduction of the film, I found the whole cast to be really good. It's like, you don't think Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender are going to be bad. And they weren't bad. They were excellent. But the whole supporting cast, who I didn't really know, I knew Regé Jean Page from the Dungeons and Dragons movie. Come on, Jen, that wasn't the credit you gave him.
Oh, sorry.
But other than that, I didn't know the supporting cast really well, and I thought they were all excellent and really kind of believable in the roles they took on. So it is rare, because I am a crazy person, that I rush home and tell my wife immediately that she has to go to a movie. But this was one of those, because I was like, it's really for grown-ups. It's not for weirdos. It's not some bizarre horror movie or anything like that. It's for grown-ups, and it's really great. So, Jen, you hated this because you were mad there weren't enough X-Men in it. You're like, we have young Magneto.
I'm like, where's James McAvoy?
We have Hela, Thor's sister. Where's the crossover, right?
No, I wasn't thinking about that which I think is a testament to the movie itself. Because you're right, I would think of those things potentially. I also had a great time with this. I really loved it. This movie really felt like comfort food to me. I really like Steven Soderbergh, and I really like the Ocean's Steven Soderbergh, right? Like the stylish, quippy, wry dialogue, the sort of awkward humor mixed with like very fast paced storytelling. Like, so this felt really good to watch, I think. And like Antonio said, the thing that took me by surprise as well was the sort of messy psychological parts of it, like that where these characters are just like hot messes and totally unprofessional in a lot of ways, and that all comes out. But then also it has kind of like the precision, and this is not surprising for Steven Soderbergh, but it has this kind of like precision clock mechanism sort of mystery to it, where it really does feel like an Agatha Christie novel in a lot of ways, where even though it's a spy thriller, it has a lot of elements, like in terms of the structure and the style of storytelling. It really does feel a little bit more like a mystery than a spy thriller, right? But I really, yeah, I have basically no notes for this movie. It was a lot of fun, and I say only an hour and a half. Let's make more movies an hour and a half,
Love
people.
it. Yeah.
It was
at 90 minutes. It was great.
yeah. It didn't feel too short. It didn't overstay its welcome. It was really perfect in terms of its timing and pacing. So yeah, I big recommend for me. I feel like I haven't had a chance to talk to normies about movies since seeing this movie, but this would be my like, oh, you got to go see this, because it really feels like the type of movie. And now we're really moving into recommendation algorithm. So I guess I'll just play the music, in which we establish the audience of a film. It really does feel like the kind of movie that people who don't go to the movies anymore would go see. Like the people who are like, I don't want to be super depressed. I don't want to have to think that much. But I am a smart person, so I do want to be entertained by smart things, right? Like, there's really a subsection of people who kind of have fallen off the wagon in terms of going to the movies that probably would be into this. But what do you think?
Will say, so I recommended it to everybody, including my parents, who do go to the movies very often, but often for like action movies, spy movies. So I thought, like, oh, here is a spy movie that I really like, and I think you'll like it too. And then when we had the FaceTime with my parents, they were like, it was okay.
Ah.
I was like, well, what's wrong? And my mom definitely didn't enjoy it that much. My dad fell asleep. um, the latter is not uncommon, but I think that for them, like my mom likes like a gun to be shot every 15 minutes. It like jars her awake, and she likes that the stakes of just like the life and death and the people, whatever, and the special effects and all of that. She likes that a lot. So I think that's not this, right? Like there are high stakes, but it's very talky, right? So if that's what you're expecting, then it's not exactly that. But if you like your espionage doused in vinegary dialogue, then this is for you. So yeah, I thought that it was sort of like, this is it. This is one where we can intersect, but it didn't work for them.
Hmm. Uh, I would say, I think we've used this line before, but there is the crowd that's like, they don't make them like they used to, right? And the other word we should probably throw in here is like Hitchcockian, right? That there's just this nice constructedness to this. I think it plays to adults, and see our conversation of Marvel movies. We just don't get things that play to adults that often anymore, and especially a nice March release like this feels really good as well, because you're kind of coming off the high of the Oscars, and this was to me like the great dessert for Oscar season, because you've done the homework, you've done the kind of very serious, wonderful but hard to watch films, and this is like, oh well, I can treat you like an adult, and yet you can have a really fun time. It won't be that heavy or make you think that hard about the end of the world imposing upon us. So I think Jen had it right with the Oceans. If you have somebody in your life who peeks into Soderbergh for Oceans. I watched The Limey, one of his movies earlier this year, and it's kind of in that mode too. The Limey's a little grimier, but it's kind of fun, twisty Soderbergh, and that is a really good time. Other films it's like, I mean, I want to be very careful, and I would just say if you have family members who love the kind of construction of a Knives Out, Glass Onion, Benoit Blanc movie, I think there's kind of just enough Agatha Christie flavor here that they would really like it as well. So, Jen, what about you? Who are you telling to go to this movie?
It's interesting because I also kind of had the thought of like, oh, spy movie. But I think the deeper you get into when you actually watch it, sit down to watch it, you're like, oh, this is not really a stereotypical spy movie. But I did still think of one of my favorite spy movies, which is Spy Game, which is Brad Pitt and Robert Redford, because it's sort of that like agents in working the system and kind of working under the radar and who's working for whom and who's working against whom. There's a lot of cat and mouse elements to the story that I think works really well. In particular, between Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, like they play the kind of suspense surrounding that really perfectly with each other because they're both like very romantic, but then also very cold, like spies should be. So it's just really fun to watch them. And it really is one of those movies where like, yeah, we can't say too much because it's like what you think is happening is not what's happening. And then what you think is happening that wasn't what you thought before is also not correct. It's one of those movies that every time it peels back a layer, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to rethink everything, which is really fun. So yeah, so I'd say if you like mysteries, if you like spy movies more, if you like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy as opposed to Mission Impossible
or James Bond,
I think, yeah,
those, not that, yeah.
This is not Jason Bourne.
Just pointing that's why I made my name Greg Lacasse on
oh, nice.
Zoom call because I was thinking a lot about John Le Carre and that kind of spy movie as opposed to Mission Impossible and Bond. Despite Moneypenny being here and despite Bond himself being here, just an older
Pierce
Bond.
Brosnan.
Not a lot for Pierce Brosnan to do, but I find myself very much enjoying whenever he shows up, and the fact that he's kind of the M role here, if there is a role for him, it was fun to see him. So,
another thing that I'll add is the movie was funny.
Yes.
The audience laughed several times, and which is sort of unusual again for this genre too. So I think that I called it a sort of character drama. It also works as kind of like a relationship comedy too, which is fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, it has all the like good elements of a good juicy reality TV show without the trashy parts. That's sort of how I would describe it too. Like I've seen a lot of people on the internet compare this to the reality TV show The Traitor, which I have not watched yet, but apparently is very popular. So
starring Alan Cumming of Avengers Doomsday. I keep forgetting what the name of that movie is, but yes.
So are we ready for spoiler mode? I think we did a good job. Yeah, we're recommending this. It's a fun time. People who are normally like, come on, you all, I don't want to go see The Brutalist. It's too long. We have this for you, right? That's all right. So if you have not seen Black Bag and you're going to listen to our recommendation and go see it and you don't want it spoiled, this is your chance to go see the movie. It's a short hour and a half. You'll be in and out. You'll have a great time. And
shorter than most long take review episodes.
That should be our goal for tonight, is that we keep the episode shorter than this movie. So yeah, here's a spoiler warning. Rejoin us for the conversation after you've seen the film. The most this music has ever made sense.
True.
It's a perfect fit.
True.
I'm picturing the font from this movie appearing with that music playing. All right, so since we had so much fun with this movie, and Greg has already mentioned that like the cast really is a big feature of it, I want to start with that. So who was your favorite? Like, who do you think is the MVP of this movie?
Okay, well, Cate Blanchett is the MVP of just about everything that she's in. her fierce intelligence and like otherworldly beauty always make her impossible to look away from. But she's like a very obvious choice, especially as one of the two leads. So I'm going to say outside of her, Marissa Abella as the unhinged, honest, but ever useful Clarissa. She punctuates the opening dinner scene in a way that announces this movie is not what you think, right? And provides some needed moments of levity throughout the film as well. And I just found her character really like fascinating and fun, and just really in the spirit of this sort of like off kilter, spy thriller. So those would be my picks. Greg, what do you think?
It's hard to deny the power of the two central leads, right?
Yeah, it's almost unfair to include them in this question, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because they are transcendently good in the exact way you would expect them to be transcendently good. And so I really enjoyed both, and Fassbender just gets a little more of a part, so I think he might edge out Blanchett just more for script reasons than performance reasons. So Antonio stole my answer because I was not familiar with this actress at all. I don't watch Industry. There's like a set of prestige shows that are about like modeling or like reality TV that I don't understand what any of those shows are. I just hear them referred to. And
so like Euphoria? Like, what are you talking about?
No, what's the one that's like behind the scenes at a like Bachelor type show? I forget what that one is. That's not Industry. Is Industry the one with Lily Rose Depp from Nosferatu? No, that's a different one too.
Wow, we're making ourselves look bad.
It's a movie podcast. We don't watch TV. Okay. So that's the problem. But it's like that to me is like there's like a whole bunch of HBO shows that I haven't seen. I've heard good things. I'm not, misunderstanding them to be poor quality or anything, but they're just not for me. So she was completely fresh to me, and as soon as the credits roll, you do the Letterboxd review, and I was then immediately into following her page and like, where is she from? Where has she shown up before? So, in particular, I thought the editing of the quadruple polygraph scene when he's interviewing them all and you're jumping between them very quickly. That was an incredible sequence, and her kind of coquettish presence in that, and kind of playing on Fassbender and how she's always on that edge of like, I just flirt with you because it's funny, but also I'd be down. Totally worked in so many scenes and just added this great vibe because as you're trying to figure out, has one member of this couple betrayed the other, there are moments where you're like, oh, he's totally gonna sleep with this young, attractive hacker. And then it never quite goes there. So yes. Regé-Jean Page is also very, very fun. And I joked before, but I do think he's like hugely funny in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I did not expect the actor billed as from Bridgerton to bring that kind of humor. He doesn't bring as much here, but he is somebody whose presence kind of demands that the camera stay locked on him and that you kind of hang on his word. So those are great. Now that I've talked about everybody, Jen, there's no one left for you to talk about.
That was a cheat answer for sure. So I do want to specifically, I want to shout out the screenplay for making use of her comment in that opening dinner scene where she's like, when's it going to be my turn to take your polygraph? Like, she says it in such a flirty way that you're like, oh, that she's only saying that because she's trying to create some like innuendo. But then the end of the movie says, no, she was actually telling the truth. Like, she's really good at polygraphs, which I just thought was so funny, and very clever and cheeky. And yeah. So, her character is great. Because in any other movie, her character, as by virtue of being the hacker, would be pretty flat. You know what I mean? Would be just the person who's there to type on the keyboard and enhance. And so what's my answer then? I would say I actually really liked Naomi Harris. Well, okay, never mind. I'm going to be totally honest. It's Tom Burke. Tom Burke all day. I love him. He's arguably the least important character in this movie out of the dinner scene characters. But I'm always happy to see him, and I feel like he really played this kind of like lovable dirtbag character very well, and you never quite knew how much you should pity him versus be really frustrated with him, in a way that clearly the other characters felt about him as well. And so I think, yeah, and he is the character with the least agency among them all potentially, because he's just kind of like whatever, like. So yeah, I thought his performance was very good because he had arguably had the least material to work with, but still came across as a very fully fleshed character. And I was still suspicious of him, even though I was like, oh, he's kind of dopey and incompetent in a lot of ways. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the mystery element of this so far. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about next. Like, what was your relationship to the mystery? At what point did you start to feel like you figured it out? Is it the type of mystery where you felt like you could figure it out as you went? Or like at what point were you suspicious of the Regé Jean Page character?
Well, I'll start with this. Part of what makes the sort of like this film working on multiple levels as like a character drama and a spy thriller and kind of a comedy. What made it so pleasurable was that even in moments in which like the mystery was still pretty opaque and we still weren't quite sure, we didn't have enough sort of clues to sort of to figure things out. It was still fun just to be in the company of these people, right? And it was still fun just to watch them talk and to just like figure out who they were. So it wasn't so while a lot of these kinds of movies, you spend your time thinking like, well, this person did this or whatever, and you're collecting clues in your head. I found myself just sort of like sitting back, like that initial dinner scene. Just first of all, I just respected as a writer how quickly we got there and how efficiently it established like this is what's going to happen. These are the stakes, and here are these people. We're just going to shove them in a room, and like how can you not be fascinated, right? And then watching all of that happen, yes, you're curious about like what he's ultimately trying to sort of suss out, but you're also getting these sort of like delicious lines and these really interesting characters, and then it culminates in that like that stabbing scene where like most movies wouldn't go that far. The fact that it does makes you think like, well, what is this? What am I in for here, right? I will say of the four invited guests, at least at the beginning, Clarissa seemed the most sort of like unstable, which made her both the most initially suspicious and the least likely to ultimately be the traitor. Right. So just in the rhythm of the movie. Tom Burke, as Jen pointed out, seemed like the least competent of the four. So I also kind of ruled him out. So then I've narrowed it to Dr. Vaughn and James or Catherine. Right. Because Catherine obviously is sort of set up as like this as potentially the big, fish here. But the two that seem sort of like the most together, I assume that at some point we're going to something will be disclosed, and so that's sort of how I initially read this part of the film. What about you all?
I think I largely agree with how you kind of ranked those characters in that opening scene, and yeah, Clarissa in the lupus position where it's going to be the first answer but not ultimately correct answer in classic House MD style seems right to me. But I will say the central mystery of like what's going on, but also like, can we trust this marriage? I thought was kind of a really interesting question that was more kind of where I spent a lot of time kind of playing this out because the ticket stub in the trash can seemed too silly to have been a legitimate mistake by a master spy. And so I like how the screenplay built its kind of mystery around like, are these two betraying each other when the characters never actually doubted each other? And that's kind of the beauty of this short, sweet little movie is that like the marriage is rock solid and they completely trusted each other. And everything they did around that was kind of keeping up appearances to trick other people and to fall into that. So I did find myself kind of questioning for a long time, like, is it? And when Fassbender shows up at Clarissa's house and she's like ready to go, and he's like, I was like, I don't know, I think he might, and then it all worked so well. So I found myself not completely sure for most of it that they were as great as they were, but I love that was the answer, because the trailer for this didn't really mislead, but I would say the trailer made it feel a lot more like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type experience, where it was really going to be the two of them trying to outfox each other. So the fact that it really just came down to they just tricked all these other people into revealing themselves worked really well for me.
I'm very gullible, as you probably both know. So for a good chunk of the movie, probably the first 30 or 40 minutes, I'm understood the movie to be, oh, it's going to be him coming to terms with the fact that he has to bust his own wife, right? And turn her in. And the screenplay in that opening dinner scene wastes nothing. Nothing that we learn about any of those characters isn't used later on for some reason. And so the thing we learn about it's Tom Burke's character, kind of being too TMI and telling the story that like nobody wants him to tell about how George took down his own father, right? And that he's so cold and so professional. And again, everything we learn about him in that opening scene, my favorite shot in that is the splash of the sauce on his sleeve. Because they don't really make a big deal out of it, but just the close-up of it, and then he immediately has to go change his shirt, tells you so much about his character. And so I was really like, oh, this movie is going to be about him wrestling with like, he can't help but turn in his own wife who's a traitor and do the same thing he did for his father. That's kind of what I thought I was getting into. And then it's just so fun when the movie like pulled that rug out from under me. And then I was like, oh, wait, nothing I thought is true. Like, it's like I have to rethink everything. So I too really like the answer. And especially in that, I think it's in the satellite replacement scene where he kind of has the closest thing to a monologue about like, here's what the point of this movie is, where he says, this is how it works. Like we watch, I'm watching her. I'm sure she's watching me. But at the end of the day, like, we do anything to protect each other. And then Marissa Bella's character goes, that's really hot, right? Like, so, again, so fun. Takes something that could be very self-serious and turns it into something that's very funny. But I think that's the emotional core of the movie that carries you through the intricacies of the mystery, is that you start to believe that, oh, it was silly for us to doubt their marriage and their commitment to each other at all, and their trust for each other at all, right?
I don't think that it's gullible to think that, like, I mean, I think we're very much set up to suspect Catherine. And Cate Blanchett is a kind of actress who, especially in this mode, always looks like she's concealing something, right? So it's natural to suspect her. I mean, even as late as the final bed scene with the two of them, I didn't totally rule out the possibility that she could be betraying George, right? Which is just fun, which is, again, keeps you on the edge of your seat. But again, with the premise, I mean, so much of this just comes down to like, you just thought of the perfect premise and then you executed it incredibly well, right? And then, so yeah, the fact that I was still a little bit on the edge of my seat and still wasn't willing to like totally relax, even in that scene, tells you something about, I think, the skill of the screenplay, the skill of the actors, and just like, again, how fun and sort of unusual this experience was.
When they revealed that the satellite changeover moment was used to sneak the guy out of the house, that was the moment I was like, oh, so Catherine really is playing him and mastered it. Like, that was the moment where I went furthest down that path and totally believed it. I think it's right that absolutely everything Antonio just said about executing it really well, and just get it. This is what it means to get really high quality actors too, right? Like really doing their work and understanding the type of part they should be in, because it's not like Cate Blanchett never delivered. I mean, I have referred offhandedly to Thor. She nails that part in the Thor movie, which is so stupid, but like so wonderfully done. And so that's why you hire good actors, and when you really find a part that they can sink their teeth into, it's really nicely done. I have seen so much internet lust for Michael Fassbender cooking in that shirt, and the shot where the steam covers up his glasses. I mean, I see it, ladies and gentlemen. I get it. Like it's certainly like the dream. There was that trend for a while that was like it was like porn for ladies, and it was just like an attractive man fully clothed cooking dinner or something like that. It felt like one of those memes of like he's really the dream man. But
I just think it's hilarious that over and over again we keep trying to cover up the fact that Michael Fassbender is very handsome. Like, you know what I mean? Like they totally give him the comb over and the Coke bottle glasses in this. And I feel like there's a similar thing. They try to put bucket hats on him in The Killer. Like,
oh yeah.
Like it's not working, people. We can see right through it. Like
but similar shout out to the production design of the house, which is just gorgeous, and the kitchen. I couldn't find the exact quote, but I loved the moment in the start of the final scene when I believe it's Clarissa yells out like, "Why is there a different rug? Why did the rug change?" Or carpet. I don't remember what. And I was like, "Oh, this is so good that she's noting that and shouting that," and I just loved that moment.
Yeah, I think her character is so brilliant because she kind of gets to do it all. She gets to be both the very skilled professional, but also kind of the audience stand-in in terms of how she reacts to stuff, because she's kind of, by being virtue of being the tech person, she's like the least spy-y or assassin-y out of all of them. And so sometimes she's just like, what is happening? Like in a way that is kind of like very, very easily identifiable for the audience. So yeah, I think, her character's very much needed in terms of balancing the energy in this film. Okay, so the thing I wanted to ask next was more about the psychology of the characters. We've talked about it a little bit so far, but did you feel like, I mentioned earlier, and this is totally where this question I asked is coming from, I mentioned earlier that opening scene, everything we learn about all those characters actually becomes very important for the plot. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Did that work for you? Is that really what's making this so successful for this genre, because it's sort of marrying character development with plot in a weird way, or is it just plot? I don't know. Yeah, what are your thoughts about this? The example I put in was the Dr. Zoe. We learn about her Catholicism and kind of like her what's the word, like kinks, maybe possibly driven by her relationship with her religion, and then that actually does become important. That becomes really crucial for unlocking the mystery at the end. So yeah, tell me your thoughts about that aspect of it.
I think one of the first misdirects, I mentioned that this is half Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the reference to fun and games is very specific. And George is also an echo from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I think that's the first sort of misdirection, because like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, that is a very unstable marriage, and then throughout the course of the evening, we get into sort of the depth of that. So it prepares you to think like, oh, these two do not have a rock solid marriage, and we're going to figure out why over the course of this, right? So in terms of the psychology and the specific example that you mentioned, I think they were each like distinct characters, and they were three-dimensional and interesting, right, in ways that it was fun to see sort of like unfold in the course of the film. In terms of the functional part of like this, like you mentioned Dr. Vaughn's Catholicism, this was maybe the part of the movie where I was just like, okay, right, like where, because you're Catholic, you wouldn't allow this and that, and then we've come to this conclusion about this, and I was like, oh, all right. I thought some of those things, I mentioned in my Letterboxd review that like the smart characters get to be smart, and that's fun to watch, but some of the characters are quite dumb, right? Like it's do dumb things at least, right? And so revealing those things make me think like, okay. I think that's maybe my one knock on the spy part of it, was that some of the things that happened were just people being bad at what they do. The fact that the guy who ends up being the actual like traitor,
James.
James. The fact that he revealed it because he was drunk, and like a drunken pillow talk, and just like spewed out like secrets. It seems like that's not great, right? Like that's not a great spy. And so figuring him out, someone who's that messy, seems like it makes it seem like a little less impressive, I guess, that you were able to like sort of figure that out. It doesn't diminish the fun of the movie, but like it's upon scrutiny, those sort of moments, I was kind of like, okay, this isn't like top level like revelation, end of film revelation, but still fun. What did you all think?
It's in some ways that makes sense though, because to me he was the closest to the, and I say this with love, the James Bond character, in the sense that he was like his moral compass was too cut and dry, kind of like, well, I have to get this thing, and I'm going to do whatever it takes because I'm the noble hero of the story. I'm going to save the day, like, which actually makes a lot of sense now that Greg's shouting out his Dungeons and Dragons performance, because like he's sort of that character in that too, just in a much more parody style. But you know, so is this low key his audition for Bond? I don't know, who can say, but I think it does make sense that he's kind of the dumbest in that sense, because he's the most one of the most competent, but maybe the dumbest, because he's not thinking in the nuance and the moral gray that all the other characters are.
Well, and I would add that when Antonio is talking about the characters being too dumb to be spies in some ways, I thought the scene where they were sharing the war plans in the text chat group, but the editor of The Atlantic was on it, over the top, just totally should not have happened in the movie. They're too smart for this. Well, I think Antonio unpacked that scene really well, and I was just now thinking about that scene in the therapist room where they kind of get the chance to try to be Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett. And I actually mean those characters try to be those characters, not the actors trying to be the actors. And I think it is a nice parallel to show that across all of these scenes, everybody wants to be them, right? Like they have the perfect marriage. They are the best at their jobs. They're on top of this. And I think that, calling the dumb characters dumb is exactly right. It's like they're not there, and they think they are, and they can't quite live up to that level. So that kind of psychological unpacking feels like when you get a really great group of enthusiastic undergrads that decide, the tree is a penis and that's all that this book means, right? Instead of like actually building through 4 or 5 layers of whatever's going on. It's like, oh, it's got to be your kinks and that's it. So we're there. So I think that scene was purposefully silly and frustrating so that the others looked so good and so wonderful. And then real life is even dumber, as my joke demonstrated.
I don't know if I need to ask this next question, but what we've talked about, that opening dinner scene as being so crucial to the whole movie. Is there a single piece of information that we learned that is the most important, do you think? You can interpret that however you want. It doesn't have to be like for the plot or whatever, or for the mystery.
I took away that they're all capable liars. Like Freddie, who seemed the least competent of the 6, covered up his affair actually pretty convincingly until George called him out. And um, so I thought, like, okay, if this guy can still pull one over on everyone and can do it with a convincing face, then like I got to pay attention to the rest of the story. So I think that I thought that was a good way of sort of setting the level of difficulty for figuring out the rest of the film.
I think it's just before the real dinner scene, but I love the moment where Fassbender's character says to George, to not eat that one dish. And then she says something like, we're expecting fun and games. And he's like, I hope so. And like, I just love that, he's usually so still and kind of methodical, but that he does have a kind of gleeful love of the puzzle and of the capturing. And so that detail plus the story you already mentioned, Jen, where it's that he turned in his own father. I think that's just a really compelling way to build up that character. And I would add that makes it feel really effective later when it seems like he's made a mistake. When they figure out that they look like they're traitors. That's such a moment, because I felt like, oh no, like the guy that's been controlling everything is out of control. This is so terrible and horrible. So I think kind of building all the way up to that crescendo and then realizing, oh, he actually was still kind of in control. It's also beautifully done.
My answer to this might be, and I'm only just thinking of this now. This is not a gotcha moment by any stretch, but it's only because I'm inspired by what you just said. I think maybe the most important thing is what we don't learn, because we actually don't really learn anything about Cate Blanchett's character, Catherine.
Mm.
I can't really remember. Is it because we never make it the steak knife stabbing happens before we go, it's her turn at the table potentially,
Yeah.
right? But it's like we don't she's the only character that we don't get like a psychological tidbit about, which I think should have been, in retrospect, should have been a red flag in terms of the plotting of the movie. But I guess that plays into making her more suspicious. But once you know the whole story, in retrospect, that's probably what was making her not suspicious, right? Because something like that wasn't going to be used against her. So, I don't know. Respect to the screenplay. It's very smart.
David Koepp, just to say his name, because great writer. His third film with Soderbergh, he did Presence and this film, both. Jen's looking at me skeptically. Is that right?
No, I'm just looking it up because I'm like, what is he? I've heard his name a lot.
I think it's Kimmy, and then the two that came out this year are his collaborations with Soderbergh. But frequent collaborator with Spielberg. He looks at Jen.
Yes,
Grilling IMDb.
Hey, I didn't know this.
Yes, I knew it.
That's not where I was expecting this Wikipedia search to go. This is great. So what are these 3 columns on here? Sorry, he's the writer for, I guess he also directs and produces sometimes. His Wikipedia page is much richer than I thought it would be, considering I didn't really know who he was. Like, I'd heard his name, but I didn't really know who he was. But yeah, he's wrote Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and also a bunch of Jurassic Park movies. It looks like.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Jurassic. Well, he's going to be he's the screenwriter on Jurassic World Rebirth. Is that the one that has Jonathan Bailey in it and is directed by Gareth Edwards?
Yep.
So that's promising. The Mummy. Wow, he's got quite the Angels and Demons. This is very eclectic. War of the Worlds. So that's probably the big Spielberg. Panic Room. He wrote one of the Spider-Man movies. Wait, which one? What? The first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. He wrote the screenplay. He's been around. Respect to this guy. David
Whose name you've already forgotten.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names sometimes. Yeah, that's awesome. Death Becomes Her. What? Oh, he co-wrote that with somebody else. So, but still.
No, that's a wide range of films. But it makes sense that there's so many elements, there's comedy, there's drama, there's what, he can do it all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I will say, I did not find Presence 100% effective. It has a very similar style of kind of really tight construction and writing. I think I found the denouement a little less engrossing and a less satisfying, but there's a lot of that same kind of layering. So I would say if people loved this and were kind of curious what else Soderbergh is up to, totally different mode, but kind of fun.
The Little Engine That Could. I'm just having fun reading these movies. Like, this is so random. Some of these are so random. But you were right, Greg. He did do Kimmy. That's the other Soderbergh. Presence and Kimmy are the other two. You were correct. Because I was here, if only to validate what you said. All right. So, do we have anything for rhetorical situation? I put some weird notes in here, but are we feeling it?
I feel like the big question is genre, and we've kind of tackled that.
Yeah.
So let's just jump over to thesis, please, and do that as a speed round of rhetorical situation.
Okay, that works. So I'm going to preface thesis, please, with a question that I did have in here somewhere. Now I can't find it, but in my Letterboxd review, I was sort of like, I gave it 4.5 stars because I was like, I guess a half star off for not being that deep or about anything, but does that really matter? And so that's good. Is this movie actually trying to say anything, or is it just this fun genre exercise?
Thesis, please.
What do we got?
Since I forced us into this, I should have an answer
Yes,
to
right.
it. So, yeah, I recently saw a Letterboxd review. It's a movie coming out soon called The Ballad of Wallace Island, the new Carey Mulligan film, which I think looks pretty good. And I believe this was Sean Fennessy from The Big Picture was like, this movie was just kind of a fun time, and that's enough. And I've kind of thought about that a lot in terms of my own viewing, because I'm often trying to unpack things too deeply. I did just have the pleasure of taking my mother and 2 children to go see Snow White, and like all 3 of them loved it. And I'm like, well, but, and I was like, maybe it's just enough to see some songs and some dancing and have a good time at the movies. And that clearly impressed the beloved normies in my life that they are. So I think number one, this movie just meant to have fun. I think when you entwine yourself in kind of questions of the modern surveillance state and government politics and intrigue, it kind of naturally feels like you should have something bigger to say. But I would say, if this film has a thesis, it's like, the sickos who I'm using sickos a lot tonight. That's just my missing.
Because PT's not here. He's always
exactly right. I'm stealing his word since he's not here.
The sickos in the window.
The absolute weirdos who would devote their lives to these really terrible things are gonna end up being really weird sickos, and yet maybe they'll find each other and love each other. So there's hope for us all. I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think related to that, I mean, like the central question for me was like, just based on the premise, can 2 people who lie professionally and who can never be completely honest with one another still maintain love? Because we're sort of conditioned in stories to think that trust is like a prerequisite to love, and complete trust is a prerequisite to love. And so given that they can't do it and that they acknowledge it, right? The black bag, that means like, I can't tell you that. And then you just say it and whatever, right? And you have to accept it. It's sort of like faith in this person. And given all the shady things that they do, it's really hard for us as the audience to trust that this love is real, and that this love will endure, and that they can make it through. And the fact that it's actually the more sort of radical choice for them to have in a way a kind of conventional, like their love being kind of conventional, even though their professions and like everything they do is so wild and nuts, that like their monogamy, their dedication to one another, their devotion to one another, that manages to endure is kind of delightful. And again, another surprise in a movie that's filled with surprises. So to me, that's what I sort of take away from it. I agree. Maybe it doesn't. I don't think it has much to say about like world politics or whatever. Like, I think that the central machinations of the plot and what it's saying, like with Russia, whatever. Like, I don't think that there's much to talk about with regard to that, and that's okay, right? Because as you said earlier, right? Like, I love Greg's like post Oscar dessert. That sometimes we want to go to the movies to just have a good time, to just like to sit with a group of like strangers, and for all of us to just sort of like laugh and gasp and just like enjoy ourselves. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. And to do it with like this cast at this high of a level, like, great, wonderful.
Yeah, this this movie cares very little about the sort of ideology behind espionage, I think, which typically I think other more common spy thrillers do in some way, right? They're kind of attacking the moral conundrum of like, oh, you are saving the world, but you're breaking the law at the same time. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that usually, or about global politics, about like, okay, what are the world conflicts that the spy has to then step in and kind of intervene. And for this movie, I'd say global politics are basically a MacGuffin. I mean, technically Severus, whatever that is, like I still don't know if I could tell you what that is. What is the MacGuffin? But really, like all of the sort of like what the spying is for is really inconsequential to the movie, which I think is really interesting because it's very contrary to what's standard for the genre. But what I was going to say is that I do think that at the end of the day, this is a movie about a weirdly romantic relationship where you're like, oh, I'm oddly moved by this very disturbing behavior because they're both the same kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like they're both dark and will kill people and like, but they're they're made for each other. And I feel like one of the characters towards the end actually says that, where they're like, you two deserve each other, kind of.
Yeah.
So, but, and I don't think it necessarily has to be saying more than that. And I think I'm struggling because I'm like, does it? To be like a great movie? Does it have to have kind of some, because so many other movies take something that seems like a genre exercise and can say a lot about, or like make a statement. This movie's not really trying to make a statement other than there are these characters. These two people really love each other, even though it kind of seems impossible that they would. Do we need to do Oscars watch? I don't think this is getting any
It's going to
Oscars.
be a really bad year if this is in the Oscar race.
Right.
But it was a good time. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is no knock on the movie. I would be delighted to see the screenplay be, recognized in some capacity, but I don't think it's particularly likely. But yeah, it doesn't feel like an Oscar-y movie.
Yeah, and
I was trying to think of why, and I think it's like the same reason that like really satisfying comedies and thrillers typically don't excel as great representations of like art to the Academy. It's just the satisfactions are almost like too immediate, right? It's just like too much and too much fun and not enough sort of like,
hand wringing of something.
Yeah, hand wringing and like thought pieces
Yeah.
like coming out about it, so that it yeah. Which is part of the reason why I think it's being released now.
Right. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And I think the Oscars exception to that rule is largely looking at you, Big Jim. Largely blockbusters, right? Technical achievements.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can kind of escape that expectation of like, oh, you have to be important and saying something important for us to care about this, as opposed to just being fun. Whereas like, although you could argue that, yeah, so maybe it is because it's kind of like witty and funny, and it's also like weirdly smaller scale than something like a Top Gun Maverick or an Avatar. Right? Oh, those are big movies. This is actually, despite being on a global stage and being about spies, is actually a pretty small, intimate movie.
Well, and I'd bounce back again to the Knives Out movies. There were a couple nominations kind of sprinkled around, but those are kind of thought to be this kind of same level of, well, I had a good time and I watched it and it's very enjoyable. But I don't think the first Knives Out got any Oscar nominations. But there was some sprinkling of Golden Globes.
Screenplay?
I think, for writing.
Or people just thought,
okay. And I'm pretty sure Daniel Craig got nominated for the Golden Globe that year, but not the Oscar.
Yeah, there's a chance at Golden Globes for Blanchett and Fassbender, potentially.
You just know they want famous people at their ceremony. But yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think I don't think the studio nor the director wants this to be, my impression from what I've heard from Soderbergh recently is he just likes to do things that are fun. And, Presence was an interesting little game he wanted to play with. The camera was the first person of the ghost. And this was like he'd heard a little bit about the script and sounded like it could be really fun. And he had some ideas. And if our masters who have proven themselves, if they just want to do things that amuse them and let us see them, that totally works for me. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I am glad for one that we got to review this. It was fun to watch, fun to talk about. Antonio, where can folks find you? And I know there's only one place.
You can find me on Letterboxd at Aelefano, AELEFANO. Greg, where can people find you?
I am also on Letterboxd at IonCanon, EYEONCANON. I just hit my 200th film of the year, which is insane because we're still in March. So I'm in the seek clinical help level of Letterboxd usage. And if you want to follow PT, he's at PT McNiff on Letterboxd. You can also follow the show on Instagram and Letterboxd. On Letterboxd, the show is at LTR Pod, or you can follow the hashtag LTR Pod to see what exactly we've been watching and just how many times I'm watching the same silly Star Wars movies over and over again to get to that total. Jen, where can people find you? Are you reviewing Daredevil somewhere? Did you involve a lot of Irish content in a recent entry, only to have Daredevil try to out-Irish the Irish episode?
I know. What?
So you're in trouble.
Okay, I'm going to take this up with Disney because why didn't they just have the show premiere a week earlier? Okay, mild spoilers for this week's Daredevil, so fast forward if you don't want to hear this. But it's Dog Day afternoon, St. Patrick's Day edition. Like,
yeah.
Like, why not have it on St. Patrick's Day? Like, what are we doing?
I don't know.
So yeah, that was kind of like anticlimactic when I saw that. I was like, oh,
but Jen, you are reviewing Daredevil somewhere. Where are you reviewing that?
So yes, you can find my written reviews in addition to our show. So you get 2 for 1 at thelongtake.substack.com. So you can subscribe for free and get our latest episodes right into your inbox as soon as they're published. And you can get my Marvel and Star Wars reviews. So right now it's Daredevil Born Again. So if you want to know, the one I'm about to hit publish on, because it's so close to being done, I just haven't had a chance to like look it over and finish it, is if you've ever wanted to think about how Dickens is related to Daredevil, you can read that. Saying that out loud sounds absurd now. But yeah, and you can find me on social media at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jinn. And of course, you can follow the show because PT's not here to do that usual reminder. You can follow the show wherever you get your podcasts and on social media and at the Long Take Review. And I'm so bad at this. And on Letterboxd at LTR Pod.
I already did that one. Now we've done it twice.
Oh, that's right.
All right.
Oh, whatever.
Okay. We're fine.
PT's going to be listening to this being like, "Pa, I leave for 5 minutes and this happens." Black bag? We'll just black bag it.
Black bag it. We never talk about this episode again.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive written reviews of new films with Oscar buzz, as well as any new installments of pop franchises like Star Wars and Marvel.
I was on his Instagram once. Just a little humble brag for the listeners.
Wait, like in what capacity?
His book tour came through town, and he was so amused by the way my colleagues and I took the books he signed, folded them carefully, and put them in a box that he made a video of us all doing it. It was I'm very famous.
Wow.
I actually already told that story on a podcast just tonight, but I'm going to keep spreading it around so that I'm known for just that. So
yeah,
that's it.
We don't begrudge you that at all.
And okay. Pause so that can be put after the credits and continue.
Greg's random Alan Cumming story. Okay.